On Saturday, Illini basketball played a secret scrimmage that nobody knows anything about, and yet I'm going to tell you why I am excited about the results.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you all so much for joining me for this abbreviated Sunday episode of Locked On. I just came on because I wanted to talk a little bit. I want to get everyone's mindset off of football. That was a debacle Saturday. A lot of us football fans we don't exactly have the best, taste in our mouths after that game, realizing that the dream of the college football playoff is essentially over right now. But, there's just because one season might be dwindling does not mean that Illinois sports is dwindling. And basketball season's right around the corner. We're talking about in just a matter of a little over a week, the season is going to be starting. And on Saturday, Illinois faced off against the defending national champion Florida Gators in what was called a secret scrimmage. And I'm not kidding when I say it's a secret scrimmage. My contact, who watches almost every practice that the basketball team has, was not in the gym during this particular game. If you go on your social medias, don't believe anything you read. I think I saw 3 or 4 different box scores saying different things. It's one of those where I'm just going to go based on 2 sources that I trust. And that's something that both you and I can look up online. And that's Doug Bushon from On3 and Jeremy Warner from 24/7, Illini Inquirer, a former guest of the show. This is the results that they've given us, okay? So it looks like Florida won by about 10 points, 96-86. And David Mirkovic had 17 points and 6 rebounds. Keaton Waggler had 14. Keaton Waggler, sorry, I'm going to get used to it. Look, I'm still in preseason mode too, right? This is my secret scrimmage right here. Keaton Waggler scored 14. Kylan led the team with 22. Tomislav had 17 points in 20 minutes. Mihailo Petrovic even played a little bit, but I guess he's still nursing that ankle injury that he has. Andrei Stojakovic did not play. And I believe on the Florida side, Boogie Flan did not play. I think I read that. Again, you just don't know what you can trust and what you can't trust. Now, there's no game tape, right? So there's nothing to evaluate. This wasn't even a scrimmage that was posted on a Big Ten Plus, which, I would have paid $11.99 or whatever it is a month just to watch. It was simply, the footage is not available. So I'm going to do my best to extract information from what's being provided. And so reading what I just told you, I think you might have to join me in being a little bit excited about all this. David Mirkovic had an outstanding debut against Illinois State last Sunday, one that surprised many people. And, you want to kind of temper your enthusiasm because Illinois State, for as good as they're going to be in the Missouri Valley Conference, a lot of people have them projected to win the conference. Well, when you play at a smaller conference like that, you're not really running into 6'9", 260-pound skilled big men. So David kind of had an advantage immediately playing in that game. But the fact that David had 17 points and 6 rebounds against a Florida Gators team, which again, defending national champions, and I know they lost a lot of talent, but still, Florida's still going to be considered one of the teams that can win the SEC, that's going to be a contender for a national title. David scoring 17 and pulling down 6 rebounds tells me that he's not out of his class when it comes to competing with other big men in college basketball. And again, we don't know if this was a structured scrimmage in the sense where they were playing in certain situations that they wanted to practice, but the fact that they had a final score of 96-86 tells me that there was a basketball game being played. And the fact that David had 17 and 6, and Keaton Waggler, a guy who a lot of fans, unfortunately, were disappointed with his debut against Illinois State when I wasn't. I just think, unfortunately, and I've been talking about this all off season long, my everydayers in here know this, I just think that there's certain expectations put on Keaton, like as if he was Will Riley or Kasper Siakis. And now I know what you're going to say. Well, that's what Brad Underwood said. But guys, like, if you are an Illini basketball fan, and you have been one for the last X amount of years, you know Brad Underwood just says things. It's just a simple reality. When you have him as your head coach, he's always going to convince you that every single player in that locker room is a lottery pick. And I'm not saying, I know Kylan Boswell said similar things, but again, Kylan is the captain of this team, him and Tomislav Ivičić. And with the growing reality that, we still don't have any confirmation one way or the other of Mihajlo Petrovic and whether he's going to play or not. The growing reality is like, yeah, Keaton was probably getting a lot of on-the-ball training during practice because we may have to count on him a lot in the beginning of the season, especially while we get Mihajlo acclimated to the team. So, the fact that Keaton only had 9 points, I believe it was, against Illinois State, I think some people were expecting what David did to happen to Keaton. I just think that was unfair. But the fact that he had 14 points himself against, again, a team like Florida means that just because I want to temper my expectations does not mean that I don't have high expectations. Does that make sense? I hope. Let me know in the chat if that makes sense. I think he's going to be a good basketball player. And I liked what I saw against Illinois State. He's a guy who just doesn't make mistakes. You can tell he's got very high basketball IQ, and that when he's on the court, he's going to be making the right play. Now, what surprised me a little bit was the defense that he played. I did not expect him to be even an average defender in his freshman year. And at least what we saw on Sunday looked like he could at the very least be that. And so having a 6'6" guard paired with Kylan Boswell, paired with Andrej Stojakovic, David Mirkovic, Ben Humrichhaus, or Tomislav, you're really talking about one of the biggest teams in the country. Keaton having 14 points. Kylan, who was, kind of absent against Illinois State, and I mean that respectfully, Kylan easily could have scored 25 points in that game. Nobody on the Redbirds could guard him. But he, I think, understood that he didn't need to score 25 points in that game. But in a game against a top threat like the Florida Gators, Kylan led the team with 22 points. Now, I've been calling for a Kylan Boswell breakout season. I think all the stars are aligning in that sense. It's his last year in college basketball, especially since it looks like this 5 for 5 is not passing. He's locked in. At least he seems like he's completely locked in. I got to interview him at Big Ten Media Days. Any interview you watch with him that's posted online, you can see how focused he is. He's always in the gym. He knows that if he wants to play at the next level, that there's things that he needs to improve on. I'm going to do a hot takes episode sometime this week in regards to basketball, especially with the season being right around the corner. And by the way, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we're going to have a lot of basketball preview content this upcoming week. I'm really excited about the guests I'm going to be bringing on. But a spoiler alert, and I'll expound on it later in that later episode. I think Kylan Boswell, one hot take is he's going to make an all Big Ten team this year. I know there's a lot of good guards in the Big Ten Conference, but what I'm seeing from Kylan, I really think that he understands how important the season is, just individually, and also just for the long term for him. And with all the new faces, I really think Kylan's going to have one of the biggest years. And the fact that he had 22 points against the defending national champions tells me enough. Before I wrap this up, again, the other thing I really like seeing is Tomislav Ivičić. He played 20-minute restriction, 17 points. 17 points in 20 minutes. You do your extract that out to 30 minutes. That's like a 23-point game for Tomislav. And it's nice to see that, he's recovering from the surgery that he had and looks like he's going to be ready for when the season starts. The pieces are there, guys. This team lost by 10 points to Florida. They also didn't have what many people are considering could be their best scorer in Andrej Stojakovic. We have no updates on Stojakovic yet. It doesn't look like if the fact that he didn't play on Saturday makes me lean more towards maybe he won't be ready at the beginning of the season. But still, to put up a fight against the Florida Gators without arguably, again, your top scorer, I think that's just one of many things to be excited about. You let me know what you like most from what I've said. Lose by 10, but David had 17 and 6. Keaton Waggler had 14 points himself. Kylan led the team with 22 points. Tomislav Ivicic, 17 points in 20 minutes. I think there's a lot to take from this that we can be excited about. And I'm going to be talking about it, that and more this week. Again, that's going to wrap it up for this quick Sunday edition. I told you I'm going to try to do this more often than not. Usually I'm probably going to wrap up the previous day's football game, but I just think the mood is way too somber right now, and I think we'll wait 24 to 48 hours before I reflect back on what we saw in Seattle. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you, and until next time, ILL. Love you guys.